We are kicking things off today with Disney, with the stock moving in a big way as it continues to add new subscribers. You see the stock coming back off of the lows we saw earlier on in the session. Disney overall earning $1.08 per share on revenue of $19.2 billion. But of course, Brian, the focus here is really about Disney Plus, especially given what happened with Netflix. 8 million net additions on Disney Plus. More than half of that coming from Disney Plus Hotstar, but they did reaffirm their target to reach 230 million to 260 million subscribers by 2024 and reach profitability.
Yeah, and what's interesting is we were talking so much about the park story for Disney through the reopening. Now that we're kind of back to normal, essentially. I mean, you see photos from Walt Disney World, and it seems like some of the volume there is essentially where it was pre-pandemic. The story is really shifting from a growth standpoint to their net subscriber adds for specifically Disney Plus, the bundle obviously in focus as well, Hulu and also ESPN Plus, a massive part of the growth story going forward. But look, when you talk about the content, right, Disney remains king. There are a lot of big titles that were out there. Moon Knight was a show that got a lot of attention on Disney Plus. The Kardashians, that's a show that's on. I haven't watched that, but apparently a big part of the Hulu growth because that show debuted during the quarter as well.
You've never seen the Kardashians?
Well, not the new
Hulu version.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me, Brian, you look at where the numbers are for Disney, reaffirming the targets. That's the good news, but the reality is it's going to cost a lot to get there. And there's a lot of questions about where the spend will be. Sport's a big one that's kind of been coming out because when you look at the overall spend here, $32 billion in the content budget, 1/3 of that in sports rights.
Yeah, and the thing about sports that's so interesting is that the landscape still feels like it's very much in a transitional phase. I mean, you and I had a very spirited conversation this morning about how difficult it is to get an NBA regular season game or an MLB regular season game onto your platform. And if anything, it's actually gotten more complicated over the last few years because of the proliferation of these streaming services. Now, what's kind of confusing is there's also a lot of deals and a lot of contracts that are involving not only those that are carrying the games themselves, but the streaming platforms and then the localities and the teams themselves. So it's a very, very complicated picture that I'm sure is not going to shake out anytime soon.